Emma Lewis had always believed that the office was no place for emotions. It was about results, not feelings. But lately, that belief was starting to blur. She was 29, smart, hardworking, and had built her place in the marketing firm Harper & Co. from the ground up. Yet every morning when she walked through the glass doors, it wasn't the projects or clients that made her nervous, it was her boss. Daniel Harper. Daniel was in his early 40s, confident yet calm. The kind of leader who never needed to raise his voice to command attention. Everyone respected him, not just for his intelligence, but for his decency. He had lost his wife a few years earlier, and though he never spoke much about it, there was a quiet sadness in his eyes that made people treat him with gentle respect. To Emma, that sadness made him human real, and that made him harder to ignore. On a Thursday evening, when most employees were already rushing out to enjoy their weekend early, Emma stayed behind to finish a campaign report. The office lights dimmed automatically at 7, leaving a soft glow across the floor. She liked this part of the day, the quiet after the storm. She was halfway through typing when a familiar voice spoke from the doorway. "Still working, Emma?" She turned. Daniel was standing there, jacket off, sleeves rolled up, holding a coffee cup. "You caught me," she said with a nervous smile. He chuckled softly and walked in. "I should be the one catching up on work, not you. You've been carrying the team these past few weeks. It's part of the job," she replied, trying to sound casual, though her pulse quickened. He leaned against her desk, looking at her screen. "That's the client pitch." She nodded. "Almost done. Just refining the copy. I want it to sound confident, but not pushy." "That's exactly what we need," he said, then paused, his tone softening. "You always know how to find balance, Emma. Not just in work, but in everything." She blinked, unsure how to respond. "I try my best." For a moment, their eyes met. It wasn't romantic, not openly. But there was something in the quiet understanding between two people who had been working side by side for too long, pretending not to feel the weight of connection building between them. Daniel straightened, sipping his coffee. "Listen, I was just about to leave, but before I go, do you mind staying a little longer? I want to go through the final slides for tomorrow's board meeting. It won't take long." Emma hesitated. Her instinct said she should go home. It was late, and she had already done enough for the day. But then she saw the faint tiredness in his eyes, the kind that comes from carrying more than one person should. She nodded. "Sure, I'll stay." He smiled, and something in that smile made the long day suddenly feel lighter. They moved to the conference room. The city lights outside shimmered through the tall glass windows, reflecting against the table where papers and laptops spread between them. As they reviewed the presentation, their professional talk slowly turned into small personal confessions. Daniel told her about how he'd built the company from a two-person team in a small rented office, how his late wife, Lily, had helped design the first logo. His voice softened when he said her name. "She believed in me when no one else did," he said, staring at the glowing city below. "Sometimes I wonder if she'd still be proud of what I've built." Emma listened, her heart tightening. "I'm sure she would be," she said gently. "Everything you've done, here everyone respects you. That doesn't happen by accident." He looked at her with quiet gratitude. "You sound like her," he said. Emma didn't know how to respond, so she smiled faintly and looked down at her notes. The air grew still between them, not uncomfortable, but heavy in a way that made her pulse race. An hour passed quickly. By the time they finished, the office was silent except for the rain tapping gently against the glass. Daniel leaned back, stretching his shoulders. "Thank you, Emma. I know I ask a lot from my team, but you've gone above and beyond." "I don't mind," she said honestly. "I like what I do. And working with you. It motivates me." He tilted his head, studying her. "Does it?" She nodded, her voice softer now. "You care about things that matter, that makes people want to do their best." For the first time, he looked unsure of what to say. There was something almost vulnerable in his expression. Then he smiled faintly. "That means more than you know." The rain grew heavier, blurring the city lights into a haze. Daniel stood, walking toward the window. "You ever feel like the world outside moves too fast?" he asked quietly. "Like we spend so much time working, we forget to live." Emma joined him by the glass, watching the reflection of the two of them standing side by side. "All the time," she said. "But maybe working hard is our way of trying to feel in control." He looked at her, his expression thoughtful. Maybe. For a long moment, neither spoke. The silence wasn't awkward. It was full of things neither of them dared to name. When Daniel finally spoke again, his voice was gentle but low. "You remind me that there's still good in people, Emma. You don't wear masks like most do." Her heart skipped. "That's kind of you to say it's true." He smiled faintly. "Sometimes I forget how much a little honesty can change a day." She turned toward him, meeting his gaze. There was something about the way he said her name that made it sound different, like he meant it in more than one way. But before she could process the thought, his phone buzzed on the table. He picked it up, reading a message. His face softened. "My daughter," he said. "She's asking when I'll be home." Emma smiled, stepping back slightly. "You should go. Family comes first." He nodded, still looking at her. "Yes, it does. But tonight, this talk it reminded me what connection feels like. Thank you." She blinked, unsure what to say. "You don't need to thank me, Daniel. It was just conversation." He smiled again, that calm, sincere smile of his. "No, Emma, it wasn't just conversation." And with that, he gathered his things and walked toward the elevator. She watched him go, the sound of his footsteps fading into the echoing hallway. When the doors closed behind him, she was left standing there with the sound of the rain and the faint glow of her computer screen. She told herself it was nothing, just a friendly moment between colleagues who worked too much. But something inside her whispered that this was the beginning of something she couldn't easily forget. As she finally shut down her computer and walked to the elevator. Her reflection in the glass showed a woman trying to stay calm, yet uncertain why her heart was beating so fast when the elevator doors opened. The same scent of Daniel's cologne lingered faintly in the air. She stepped inside, pressed the button for the lobby, and closed her eyes. She told herself to stop thinking about him, to push the evening away. But no matter how hard she tried, his voice echoed in her mind, calm, warm, and far too personal for comfort. That night, lying in bed, Emma couldn't sleep. The city lights outside flickered across her ceiling, and every time she closed her eyes, she saw his smile. It wasn't a fantasy, it was something real, something deep. Something that scared her because it felt too right and too wrong all at once. She turned on her side, clutching her pillow, whispering to herself, "It's just work. That's all it is." But her heart didn't believe her, and deep down, she knew this was only the beginning. The next morning, Emma walked into the office trying to act normal. But everything felt different. It wasn't Daniel's words she remembered most, it was the way he had looked at her before leaving. A kind of silent gratitude mixed with something else, something unspoken. She told herself it didn't mean anything. He was her boss, a widower, a man dealing with his own life. Still, her thoughts kept circling back to that moment by the window and how, for a heartbeat, it had felt like time stopped. She focused on her work, staying busy to silence her mind. The presentation they'd prepared was a success. Daniel praised her in front of the entire team, saying Emma carried this project on her shoulders. We wouldn't have done it without her. Everyone clapped, and she smiled politely, pretending not to notice the warmth that rose in her chest. After the meeting, Daniel stopped by her desk. "Can you step into my office for a minute?" Her heart gave a small jump, but she nodded and followed. His office was bright, filled with soft daylight reflecting off the skyline. He gestured for her to sit. "I just wanted to thank you again. Yesterday was a lot, and you stayed late without hesitation. I appreciate that." She smiled lightly. "You don't have to thank me. It's part of the job." "Still," he said, "most people would have left." "You didn't." He paused for a moment, studying her. "I was wondering if you'd be interested in taking on more responsibility. Maybe leading the new product launch." Her eyes widened. "Me," he nodded. "You've earned it." You have a sense of empathy that most marketing professionals overlook. You understand people, and that's what this project needs. Emma felt a rush of excitement. It was a big opportunity. I'd love that, she said, smiling sincerely. Good, he replied. Then let's start planning next week. She stood to leave, but he stopped her gently. Oh, and Emma. She turned. About last night, he said carefully. I hope it didn't feel uncomfortable. She hesitated, then shook her head. No, not at all. He smiled in relief. Good. I just didn't want to cross any lines. You didn't, she said quietly. It was just nice. For a second, he seemed to want to say more, but then he nodded, keeping his expression neutral. All right, then. Have a good rest of your day, as she left his office. She felt something shift inside her, something that felt both thrilling and uncertain. Over the next week, Emma and Daniel spent more time together than ever before. They met early to brainstorm, stayed late to polish details, and exchanged countless emails and calls. The line between professional and personal blurred naturally, not because they tried to cross it, but because genuine connection doesn't ask for permission. He started sharing small details. About his life, how his daughter, Mia, was applying to college, how weekends felt quieter than they used to, how he sometimes forgot to eat dinner because work distracted him. Emma listened, laughed, reminded him to rest. In return, he listened to her stories, her struggles living alone in a new city, her dreams of one day starting her own creative agency. You'll do it, he said one evening after a long day as they walked out of the building together. You've got what it takes. She smiled softly. You really think so? I know so. The confidence in his tone made her heart flutter. It wasn't just the words, it was that he believed in her more than she believed in herself. One rainy Friday, Daniel called her into his office again near closing time. You busy tonight? He asked, his tone casual. She frowned, a little caught off guard. Not really. Why? I was thinking we could review the campaign strategy before Monday's client pitch. I'll order dinner in. I don't want to waste your weekend, but it'll save us a lot of time next week. She hesitated, staying after hours again. Last time had left her restless for days, but her professional side pushed away her doubts. Sure, she said. That works. By 8, the office was empty except for them. Daniel had ordered Chinese food, and they sat across from each other at the long conference table. The city outside glowed through the glass, neon lights reflecting off the polished floor. They worked for a while, trading notes and ideas. But soon their conversation drifted again, this time more personal. Daniel told her how he met his wife in college, how they dreamed of starting a company together. Losing her changed everything, he said quietly. It made me bury myself in work. It was the only way to stop feeling the loss. Emma listened, her heart aching. That's understandable. You built something meaningful out of pain. Not everyone can do that. He smiled sadly. Maybe, but sometimes I wonder if I've built walls too high to let anyone else in. Her breath caught for a second. The way he said "eat it" wasn't just about life. It felt like something meant for her to hear. She looked down at her food. Maybe walls aren't meant to stay up forever, she said softly. They just protect us until we're ready. Daniel watched her quietly for a long moment. You sound wiser than your age. She smiled faintly. Maybe just observant. The air grew still again. Outside, the rain began to fall harder, a quiet rhythm against the windows. Daniel leaned back, his gaze still on her. Emma, can I ask you something? Of course. Do you ever feel stuck? Like you're waiting for something to change, but you don't know what? Her lips parted slightly. The question hit too close. Every day, she admitted. I think that's why I work so much. It keeps me from thinking about what's missing. He nodded slowly, his expression soft. Exactly. Neither of them said it out loud, but they both understood. They were two people chasing success, filling the silence left by loneliness. And now, sitting there in the quiet office, They had finally found someone who understood that silence. Time slipped away, unnoticed. The clock hit 10. Papers were forgotten, food half-eaten. Their voices lowered naturally, as though they were sharing something secret. When she finally stood to leave, Daniel walked her to the elevator. The lights in the hallway flickered faintly, and the air felt still. "Thank you again for staying," he said. "I don't take it for granted." "You don't have to thank me," she said, smiling softly. "I don't mind." He nodded, but his eyes said something different. "Good night, Emma." "Good night, Daniel." As the elevator doors closed, she saw his reflection fade away, but the feeling in her chest didn't fade with it. That weekend, Emma couldn't focus on anything else. She went shopping, met a friend for coffee, even tried watching a movie, but her thoughts kept drifting back to Daniel. His voice, his stories, his quiet strength. She reminded herself again and again that he was her boss. But the truth was simple. She felt connected to him in a way she hadn't felt with anyone for years. On Sunday night, as she was preparing for bed, her phone buzzed. A message. "Daniel, hope you got some rest this weekend. You've earned it." She smiled before realizing she shouldn't. Still, she typed back, "Emma. Trying to, but I think I've forgotten how to relax. Daniel, that makes two of us." There was a pause. Then another message appeared. "Daniel, I'm proud of you, Emma. You've changed the way I look at work, and maybe even life." Her chest tightened. She stared at the screen, unsure how to respond. Finally, she wrote, "Emma, you've done the same for me." And that was all it took. A simple exchange. But it changed everything. That night, Emma lay awake, realizing that whatever they were, friends, colleagues, something undefined had become too real to ignore the next morning. Daniel greeted her with his usual calm professionalism. But beneath it, there was a softness in his tone that hadn't been there before. "Ready for the big week?" he asked as they walked into the conference room. "Always," she said, though her heart was racing as they began their final meeting before the client pitch. She caught him glancing at her once or twice, quickly looking away. It was subtle, but she noticed. She always did. When the meeting ended, Daniel paused as everyone left. "Emma," he said quietly. She turned. "After the presentation tomorrow, let's grab dinner. Just as a thank you. You've earned it." Her heart skipped. Dinner. He nodded, smiling softly. Yes, no work talk. Just a proper thank you. She hesitated only for a second before replying, "I'd like that." And as she walked out of his office, she could feel her pulse pounding. She knew she was standing at the edge of something that could change everything. It wasn't about ambition anymore. It wasn't about late nights or presentations. It was about two people who had built walls around their hearts and were slowly, carefully starting to let each other in. She didn't know what would happen next. But deep down, she knew it was only a matter of time before something broke the line they had both been pretending not to see. Monday came with the weight of everything Emma and Daniel hadn't said. The morning air felt heavy, like the world itself knew that something important was about to happen. The office buzzed with energy. The big presentation day had arrived. Emma wore a navy blue dress, simple but elegant, and pulled her hair back neatly. She looked composed, but inside her heart was beating faster than usual. Daniel met her in the lobby, coffee in hand. "You ready?" he asked with a calm smile. "As I'll ever be," she replied, trying to sound steady. He handed her the cup. "You've got this," he said softly. "No matter what happens, I'm proud of you." Those words meant more to her than she wanted to admit. She'd worked years for recognition like this, but when it came from him, it carried a different kind of warmth. The presentation went perfectly. Emma's confidence shone through, her ideas clear and powerful. Daniel watched her the entire time, pride visible in his expression. When the meeting ended, the clients were thrilled, shaking hands and congratulating them both. As the conference room cleared, Daniel turned to her, his voice low. "You were incredible, Emma." She smiled, relief flooding through her. "We did it."